And now it's a pleasure to welcome to studio Brigadier General in the Reserves, Israel Relik Shafir, former commander in the Tel Nof Air Force Base and former combat pilot in the Israeli Air Force. Thank you so much for being here in studio. So many developments on this day, as is often the case. I want to start specifically, though, with this hostage truce deal. Talks in Paris over the weekend, now this week again in Qatar. And the nation waits, and the families of the hostages wait to see if there is, in fact, going to be a breakthrough. Your assessment, your feelings on what could unfold in the coming days?
Well, the date that everybody's alluding to is the beginning of the Ramadan, which is about 2 weeks away. Obviously, you need nerves of steel to run the negotiations on the one hand, and it's not direct negotiations, it's through a third party, so to speak, have the pressures at home, political pressures from the right to refrain from an agreement, pressure from the families of the hostages, street protests by those who oppose the government, and Netanyahu personally, and the fragility of his government that we may call it fragile, but so far it's been holding pretty well through all the pressures. So all this encapsulates I would say, an unstable situation, not just in Israel itself, but for the whole deal. And it's not because we're dealing with terrorists. If we were dealing with another country, each country has its own decision-making pressures, and whether to give in or not to the other side, and how to play the cards. But Hamas is under pressure to get to the Ramadan with some kind of I wouldn't say a win, but some kind of an advancement on their side. So Israel at this time has an advantage because the other side has a date to get to some kind of a decision. But I would be very cautious in calling the shots at this time. Nobody knows what will happen. It remains to be seen, and we have to be also ready for this thing not to materialize and linger on and on. So I would say not just be cautious, but be restrained.
Benjamin Netanyahu, in that interview with CBS, also saying it's not clear if a hostage deal will materialize from these ongoing talks that we're talking about, adding that Hamas needs to come down to a reasonable situation. Now, in the beginning, already the demands from the terror group have been described by Israel as delusional. There seemed to be some kind of wiggle room, so to speak, and some kind of disembarking from those demands to an extent, but where do the red lines remain for Israel at this juncture? Rafah and the operation there looms large.
Let's take it to an everyday situation that we all know. You're going to buy a new car or a second-hand car, and you're playing hard to get. Price is too high, maybe something broken in the car, I'm not sure, it doesn't look nice. You walk away and wait for the salesman to chase you because he needs to make a sale, and you know that he needs to make a sale. So these everyday interactions that we're all aware of almost on a daily basis are the same for the negotiations that we're talking about. So Netanyahu is talking tough because he thinks, and I agree in this particular case, that our cards are improving as we go along at the expense of the hostages and the nerves of the families. So it's a game that we all know, but we kind of tend to forget that the leaders and the international community is also playing exactly the same game that we would be with a car salesman. So Netanyahu is playing his cards, and he's putting pressure on Rafah. He says, we're going to go into Rafah. He also needs to appease his right-wing faction in the government. So he's trying to get all the balls up in the air at the same time. So far, He's been able to do it. This is one of his traits, and he's been able to do it pretty well.
Well, hopefully, whatever it is in terms of the strategy, it happens quickly, because certainly time is of the essence for the hostages. And of course, one cannot imagine what the families are going through, waiting for some kind of development out of this latest effort in Qatar happening throughout this week. Stay with us. We've got much more to discuss. And when you hear that Benjamin Netanyahu says that once Israel starts this military operation in Rafah, it will be, and I'm quoting, weeks away from total victory. It's a recurrent question. What does total victory look like?
Let's not take this too seriously, in the sense that...
Well, it is the Prime Minister making a comment on American television about the way forward.
Yes, but, you know, these are a verbiage that you must put out if you're a leader, a military leader, and you're talking to the other side, actually, through CBS. Right. You're not talking to Mrs. McLaren in Massachusetts, talking to Mr. Sinuar in Gaza via CBS. So let's put that, take it with a grain of salt.
Well, we certainly will wait to see if Mr. Sinuar, as you say, whether he's in a tunnel or above the ground, if he hears that message loud and clear, and what his response will be. Very briefly, where do you think he is? And we know that there isn't a clear answer, but is it likely that he is still inside Gaza? Your thoughts briefly. Very
much so. If everything we heard about this guy leads to an understanding that his thoughts are strategic rather than tactical, which means he's ready to go down with a ship if it does go down, and he understands that it will go down. He would probably rather go down with a ship, but send his family out and not leave, because the heritage that he leaves behind will be much more profound if he loses his life in Gaza than if he gets out.
Brigadier General in the Reserves, Israel Relik Shafir, thank you as always. Always appreciate your insights. Thank you for being here in studio.
Thank you.